A few weeks ago, my wife and I did something, I guess you could say that we never did since we've been married. We took a vacation. We went off and we just went to see some sights, and some of it was pretty fluid. We didn't, have everything planned out. We knew where we wanted to go, and there were some things that we found along the way that wasn't in the plan. But part of the plan was to go to this truck stop, gas station, whatever you call it. I don't do product endorsement, so I'm not going to say you the name of the place. But we went to this place, and they pride themselves on their clean bathrooms. And you could almost say it's a convenience superstore. I mean, it's huge. Believe it or not, it cost us better than $45 to use the restroom. But we had to go there. That was one of the goals. My wife wanted to see what this place looked like, so we went. And then she had heard about a restaurant in that area that was pretty popular. A lot of people like to go, and so she said, look, while we're there, we're going to go there too. So we went, and we go, and we get to the restaurant, and the parking lot is full. So I pulled up on the side toward the front, and I told my wife, I said, okay, why don't you go and put our name in, because it looks like they got a line, and I'm going to go find a place to park. So she did. Well, I found a pretty good spot to park, right? And I come back, and I walked around the building, she walks up to me, and I said, well, what's the damage look like? I'm going to pause here for a second. You see, because I am a very patient person, right? Most of the time. But I am a very patient person. I can wait. I'm not in a hurry, okay? I don't need to rush into most things. I like to take my time and do things. But sometimes we have to think about how we get upset if Mass doesn't start on time. Or if it goes a little long. Like, oh, gosh, come on, We have to think about that, what's happening with us, right? I said, part of my hobbies, I guess you could say, is I'll go on the internet and listen to 35, 40-minute homilies. And if we stay up here too long, people get upset. Just to put that out there for you. But anyway, the wife says, well, you're not going to believe this. I said, what's that? She says, 2 to 2.5 hour wait for a table. Well, you got to be kidding. So actually, she used that opportunity so we could go shopping. Now, she said we did get into the restaurant. It was good food. And actually, the novelty, I guess you could say, of this place is the fact that they got an old man that comes around and he throws bread to you. Really delicious, warm bread. And look, I think I figured out what baseball pitchers do when they retire. They go work for these people. Because that guy could throw. Not everybody could catch because there was a few on the floor, but he could throw. And when we left, I asked the waiter, I said, hey, let me ask you a question. This was a Tuesday night, by the way, a 2.5 hour wait. I asked the waiter, I said, when is a slow night? And he looked at me, he says, probably 3 or 4 months from now. My luck, he would have said yesterday. Okay, but anyway, my wife said she wants to go back one day. I said, if we go back, we're going to rent a hotel room in that town across the street, so we go put our name in and then go take a nap. But we had a good time. We saw some very beautiful religious sites. We just was able to relax. And it was almost a miracle for us to do this. So I want to challenge you, as Catholic Christians, we need to believe in miracles. Okay? We need to be able to believe in miracles. Today's gospel is a perfect example of a miracle that Jesus Christ performed. Right? We read the words in the gospel, and it tells us about how he took these 5 barley loaves and he fed 5,000. But if you really dig into what really happened there, You see, it says that there was about 5,000 men. They only counted the men. That was a tradition back then. So if you dig, if you're going to do some math and you're going to really look at what really happened that day, right? So say if all those guys were married, that would be a wife for every one, or however you want to say it. So that would be 10,000. I'm using round numbers so I can keep up. Let's say they each had 2 kids. So we're looking at 20,000 people. Doesn't that miracle look a little bit bigger? Doesn't that miracle seem that much more, I guess you could say, impossible? That only God could pull this off. So we're going to just throw out the number. 15 to 20,000 people were fed by 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. Now, from Louisiana, we think, well, I guess that's not so impossible if he had 5 loaves of French bread. That New Orleans style, the 36-inch thing. But he didn't. The gospel is specific. He had barley loaves. So I brought an example of what a barley loaf might look like. Okay? I'm not going to throw it, trust me. Okay? But this is about the size of what he had to feed all those people. A pistolette. It wasn't in Louisiana, so they called it a barley loaf. Okay? But this is what he had. So now, does that miracle look even greater? If he had 5 little pieces of bread like this and 2 fish and fed 15 to 20,000 people and had 12 baskets left over, doesn't that make this miracle look even greater? How awesome. When I first got into formation, when we first started homiletics, which y'all can tell I struggled in that class, but anyway, when we first got there, we did a public speaking thing. And this guy got up in front of us, and he had on robes, and he kind of looked like he was from the Middle East or whatever. And he started talking about this gospel. And he kept going, and as he was talking, he was digging in the robes, and he had bags hanging underneath his robes, and he had all kind of food stored in those bags. And at the end of his talk, he says, so what was the greater miracle? That Jesus fed the 5,000 with the loaves and the fish? Or was it Jesus motivated these people to share what they had with each other? And when you're a student in the class, it's not always a good thing to challenge the teacher, so I stayed quiet. So I couldn't say anything. But I'm going to tell you this, if he'd ever, and I vowed, if after I was ordained, if he ever said it again, I was going to correct him. Because the greater miracle is whatever Jesus Christ did. That is the greater miracle. Jesus Christ did not come here to be a motivational speaker. Jesus Christ came here to be our Lord and Savior. Jesus Christ came here to take care of our needs. And he shows us today that that's what his heart told him to do. He looked out and he felt bad for all these people, so he fed them. That miracle happened for a couple of reasons, right? The first one is faith. Those people had faith. The disciples had faith. When Jesus said, hey, distribute these little breads, they didn't question. They did it. And the other thing that happened, the other thing that helped this to happen was generosity. The generosity of that little boy, because all he had was 5 loaves and 2 fish. And he gave everything he had to Jesus. And he looked at that crowd and he knew that might have been all he had to eat for the week. But he gave it away. Because of his generous heart, he gave it to Jesus. He had faith. And he had generosity. And he gave it away. And look at the miracle that Jesus performed. Look at what Jesus did with that little bit of generosity. So you see, we have to ask ourselves, Am I a generous person? Whenever you stand in front of the mirror, I'm going to tell you this is the hard part, right? You stand in front of the mirror and you're looking at yourself. Ask that person in the mirror, am I a generous person? Ask that person in the mirror, do I really have faith in Jesus Christ? I have trouble doing that because that guy in the mirror is really hard on me. He's really tough. I have a lot of growing to do in a lot of places. But you see, that's what we need to have. And I always ask that question, have you ever seen a miracle? And if you haven't, have you ever looked for a miracle? You see, sometimes we don't see a miracle because we might not have that faith. We might not have enough faith in Jesus Christ for Him to perform those miracles in front of us. He does, but we just don't see Him. And do we have a generous heart? Do we give from our heart or from our surplus? Do I take care of myself, and whatever's left over, I'll take care of someone else? You see, we have to ask ourselves those questions. And I tell you this, I always said it, if you ask Jesus, Jesus will help you out. So I know that in this community, and I like to brag about this community because since I've been here, I have met some of the most generous, faith-filled people that I've ever met. This community is awesome. It comes to the need of all of those and comes to the help of all those in need without asking. But we have to ask ourselves, do I give from my heart or do I give from my surplus? Am I a generous person? And like I said, we can ask Jesus, right? When we go to prayer, because I've said this quite a few times already, so some of you are going to know what's coming. So, because I know everybody here prays 30 minutes a day at least because of St. Francis de Sales. Because St. Francis de Sales said, everyone needs a half an hour of prayer every day unless you're busy. Then you need an hour. So I know everybody here prays at least a half an hour every day. That's not a question. But you see, in that prayer, we have to ask Jesus, Jesus, where can I grow in my faith? And He'll show you. Jesus, give me a generous heart. And He's going to give you the opportunity. But you see, we have to pay attention. We have to look at what He's doing in our life so that we can serve the people around us. Jesus Christ is calling us to follow Him, to be His disciples, to have faith in Him. I think part of the problem in the world today is a lack of faith and probably a lack of generosity. So we need to grow in our faith so that we can share it with those around us. Because you see, Jesus Christ performs miracles in our life every day. Every breath we take is a miracle from God. How awesome. Where is it that I can grow in my faith? What can I do to have a generous heart? Because you see, if we become generous, we get to see those miracles happen. Because Jesus Christ is going to take our generosity and our faith, and He's going to make miracles happen right in front of our eyes, just like in the gospel today. Am I a person of faith? Do I have time to pray, or do I make time to pray? Do I have a generous heart? Do I give from my heart, or do I give from my surplus? Jesus Christ is calling us to be His disciples, to have faith in Him, and to be generous with the people around us. Do I have time to pray, or do I make time to pray? Do I have a generous heart, or do I give from my surplus?